Hello, my loves. I wanted to drop in some reflections and realizations that are coming post live. So this has to do with a few of the things that I've reflected um, in terms of our live 2 days ago. One of the things that I mentioned and brought through was that we are connected to this reality because not only because we choose to, but we believe that we have to be. We believe that we come into this space, we're born, and then we die, right? That's a belief, but it's also an illusion. It's a part of the veil of reality. And it's also a version of reality too. Even though it is an illusion, illusion is still a version of reality. It's just cut off from the whole, if you will, in a sense. It has dualism. So dualism, life and death, birth and death. So another deeper realization in relation to this is that we are able to move energetically out of this reality by choice, where we do not require death. We do not require anything other, no food, no water, no nothing. We go into the chord of ascending consciousness like we do in the lives, and we remain there. And when we go into this space, if we don't, like, we come out of these lives, right? Because we feel like, well, I have to go to sleep and I have to go to work and I have to go tend to this and I have to go tend to that. It's because we have to go do something, right? Or we feel like we have to. Or we also are in that realization that we get to, right? We get to go. So we are here to experience what we believe we need to, or also, of course, now that we understand what we get to. But see, therein lies the choice, and the power of the will is that you are here by the willpower of the connection. You do not have to be, nor do you need to be. So if we wanted, we could move out of this reality at any point in time. It's also what happens, it's very similar to when we go to sleep at night. Our cord of consciousness is removed. The vessel is asleep. The subconscious is the only thing operating the organic vehicle. And the organic vehicle is an overlay. It's not the true body. It's just an animation. It's why we call it an extension, because it's an extension of our highest self. And our highest self, the only way our highest self can experience an extension of reality that is just a little piece of the whole that is experiencing itself as separation and dualism, is to extend itself into something that is not permanent. It's temporary. It's just a hologram. However, at the same time, it's always in existence. The you that exists now will always exist, and it will never exist any other way than you exist now, which means if you ever wanted to come back into the experience of the animation, you can animate yourself again at any time. But when you have the understanding and the realization that you don't have to, you don't need to, there's nothing left for you to do here, then you no longer remain in this space. Hence, again, the illusion of reincarnation, the need to. Now, the reason why we consistently reanimate ourselves here is because what came in front of me was I was sitting here eating, and I caught something on TV about a murderer and its victims. And what flashed in front of me was that upon death, it's very similar to what I've spoken into and here about death and dying, is that when you die, you have a choice about how you move, right? Because death is an illusion. You're just energy that's moving. And if you're aware of the fact that your energy is moving, then you can direct your energy upon the cord of consciousness being pulled out, or the cord of awareness. So upon death, like let's say a violent death, well, a person is not only not aware that they're about to die because they're animated from a space of unconsciousness, but they end up, the reason why we have quote unquote ghosts, if you will, or those that are operating from the spirit realm in connection and communication with this realm, is not only is that always available, we always have a spirit body, but the in-between world, the people that have been deceased and that have moved on, if you will, or let us say those people that have passed on but have not yet moved on, are those that are not aware that they have an opportunity to move on. They still believe that not only do they need their body, but they still believe that they can't move on, that there was some belief that they held upon their death that is holding their energy trapped. And it's still, but that's still a part of the game, right? Because you, on a higher self oversoul level, you are a whole soul. You are just an extension of that energy and that animation, and you have forgotten that you are a part of the whole and that you can move at will at any point in time, that you do not require anything and you don't even require the animated body. So this means that not only do we not require death, death is an illusion, so is birth. We carry around all these beliefs around what we get at birth and our child, our inner child, and all these things. It's all a part of the illusion. It's all a part of the play. It's not. It's real, and yet it's not real. So because if death is an illusion, then so is birth, which means you came through the court of consciousness, and you began operating through the court of consciousness when you hit a certain point of awareness. Up until then, you were just programs, which means the totality of our life is an operation of programs until we awaken through the court of consciousness. This means our ability to receive ourselves beyond the programs, this is where you begin to walk in. This is what we call walk-ins, right? It's not a soul leaving the body and coming back in, which is what I previously thought. But when you all have heard me express myself as a walk-in, this is what happens. A higher part of consciousness is able to come into and begin animating the vehicle, which means you're actually using the court of consciousness and not the mind, which is a program state. It's pulling information and repeating information. It's different than an extension of the whole or an extension of the higher states. So it's also something that I reflected in the live today, that when you are expressing yourself as like when you have that portion of yourself that walks in, you begin to express yourself differently. One of the biggest things that I've heard from those that knew me over the years is that I don't speak the same. I don't talk the same. Obviously, when the personality of me that was the program, which was Jessica, that's the program, the given name at quote unquote birth, the name that would be quote unquote on my death certificate, the representation of coming into the program and exiting the program, that is, I don't operate from that program anymore. I operate from Éoaccí, and Éoaccí was the walk-in of consciousness. This is who I am. It is the understanding of who I am as a being that is beyond the programs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't experience yourself as something higher while still using the name that you're given at birth. But you can see the correlation that when you operate from something that was given to you via programming, you're still operating by a design that is given to you through the understanding of what you think you are. You think you are the child of these parents. Therefore, you act based on what you think you are. You think you are the daughter. You think you are the son. You think you are the mother. You think you are the father, whatever the case may be. And you operate through the program, and you are operating through the program. That was your human design, if you will, your organic human design, based on the name, which is an active set of circumstances for the program. So your name is by design your personality and your identity. And everything that you do is encapsulated in that program name. Now, of course, like my parents, quote unquote, my parents still call me by Jessica, but I don't, they obviously, it would be a very difficult thing for them to try to communicate with me through a different name. But they are aware that I do use a different name for my services. They don't ask about it, and I don't have to explain it to them because it's not necessary. But they are aware that there is a different name that I go by, if you will. And the name represents a different design. So one thing I would invite in for everyone is that this is available for everyone. You do have a higher state of consciousness that upon your acceptance will be able to walk in. And it does have a different personality. It is a higher personality. It is a higher design. So what I'm witnessing is that if you are still in the design and the personality of your given program, then you will still operate by your given program. And you will, and so everything that's happening is you still have that programmed version of you that's still overseeing everything. So this is just, and again, it's like, what's the best that could happen? Have some fun with it. You don't have to guess at the name. You will receive it as a vibration, and it will be undeniable. And it's a reflection of your higher over. And it's a reflection of you as a cord of consciousness that is open and receiving as a channel of your higher self. So when people communicate with the dead and they're communicating with loved ones and the in-between, what's really happening is the way that you communicate through that range of currents is from the illusionary reality. Because those that are existing in that in-between state that have not moved on are existing in a reality of belief that they are dead. And death is an illusion, which means, and it's just everything is landing so clearly. The reason why it's been communicated that those that move on are operating in a different design. And yes, they have a spirit, and yes, that spirit can communicate if we invite it in, but they're not just going to show up. The ones that are going to just quote unquote show up are operating from a lower reality, which means if you felt called to operate in that lower reality, and lower is not bad, by the way, it's just a vibration. That's all it is. There's a certain set of informations that's relayed through that design, which means that design says death exists, birth exists, and that's life. And so between the life and between the death, this was the person, this was the identity, and after death, this is where they have chosen to exist. But again, that's not existence, that's belief. It's a projection of who they think they are in a state because they believe that death is real and they believe that they can't move on. Now, if a person goes out through death, this is why having the awareness of choice is so powerful, because if you are aware that death is an illusion and you still choose to go out through death, you are aware that you have a choice on where you move energetically, which means you no longer go through the illusion of quote unquote reanimating yourself here in a different life, quote unquote. Again, part of the reality of illusion. So now we are understanding that we have the power to come in and go out at will, which means we do not require birth, nor do we require death. We can move through our cord and release our astral and release our etheric at any time. But this means that we must be willing to release ourselves from the physical organic and go into the higher planes. That's the point of full ascension. Now, we ascend in reality of experience in any moment or descend, but the full ascension is the taking everything that is animating the lower reality, pulling it up into the higher reality at will. It does not require anything else. There is no, it's not planetary, that's all a part of the illusion. Now, the planet as a whole is undergoing a point of ascension, yes, through a gateway, because others are waking up to the truth of reality at its different chords of consciousness, which means eventually there will be a pulling through the cord because a higher collective awareness will exist, which will allow the planet, if you will, to exist in a higher reality of itself. So all of this, when I was experiencing this, it was like, again, just laughing. It was like, oh my goodness, we can go at any time we want, and we don't require the illusion of death. This also gives a whole new meaning to when this whole process of worrying about other people dying, worrying about Bruiser dying, I've realized that it's like, he doesn't. He doesn't. There's no such thing. This is also why a lot of animals will actually leave at will. The only time that they quote unquote die is because there's a reality that has been imposed upon them, such as sickness or disease, that requires that they go before their chosen point of will, which again, that's also an extension of our own animation. And again, when it's in the lower realities and they are sick or they're injured, it's an extension of us and what we have designed. When you're in the higher space, then it's simply an animation of spirit, and an animation of spirit comes in and leaves at will. It's why cats have always done that. You know, cat, again, we see cats are very, actually, I feel all animals represent this. If we're aware of it, they come in and go out at will. We see them as quote unquote being born, but again, on the higher levels, there's an awareness that they're actually coming in, and they come in at a certain point. They're aware that they're not being born. They're simply aware that they're coming into the experience.